An important question that I get all the time is whether a generator needs a bonded or a floating neutral, and whether or not a ground rod is required. It can be confusing because there's a lot of misinformation out there. In my last video, I talked a bit about the subject and I received a lot of questions. So today, I'm going to explain exactly what's required and why so you can stay safe and code compliant. We'll cover what a bonded or floating neutral actually means, when a floating neutral is required, or when a bonded neutral is required, how to change the connection to floating or to bonded, and how do you know whether your generator has a floating or bonded neutral in the first place. And lastly, we'll cover when a ground rod is required. I'll try to keep this as short and to the point as possible, so let's jump right into it. What does a bonded or floating neutral actually mean? In order to have short circuit protection, the neutral needs to be physically connected to ground. This is accomplished with a jumper or a bonding screw that attaches the neutral to ground, and it's called the main bonding jumper. In any electrical system, we should have only one neutral to ground bond. I'll talk about why in a minute. In your home, that bond is located either in the main breaker panel or at the first service disconnect, which is often located outside at the meter enclosure. So our electrical system in our home is a bonded neutral system. If that bond became disconnected in any way, we'd have a floating neutral and our electrical system would not be safe. Okay, that's how our homes are wired, but what about our backup generator? When a floating neutral generator is required. Many of us use portable generators to back up power to our homes when utility power goes out, which is probably why you're here watching this video. Some generators ship with a floating neutral, but many will ship with a bonded neutral, and it's important for us to understand the difference before we connect the generator to our home. The generator is going to work either way, but there's hidden dangers if we get this wrong. When we connect a generator or a power station through a transfer switch, like I have here, or an interlocked backfeed breaker with an inlet box, we don't want the generator itself to also have a bonded neutral. The generator needs to have a floating neutral. I know what you're thinking. You just told us a floating neutral was unsafe. Well, let me explain. When we connect a generator to our home with a power cord, that connects the hot leads from our generator to our electrical panel, but it also connects the neutral and the ground lead to our electrical system as well. This allows our generator to function safely as a backup system. So our generator becomes grounded and the neutral becomes bonded through our home's electrical system as soon as that connection is made. If the generator had a bonded neutral, now we would have two neutral to ground bonds. And as I mentioned before, that bond can only happen in one location. Two bonds would create parallel paths and push current onto our grounds, which includes water pipes, your appliances, any grounded surface, and that is not safe. This can also damage sensitive electronics in your home and cause AFCI and GFCI protection to not function correctly. So we've got to make sure we get this right. I'll show you how to tell whether your generator has a floating or bonded neutral in a minute, but first let's talk about when a bonded neutral generator is required. There are two applications when the generator requires a bonded neutral. The first one, and it's not very common, is when the transfer switch that connects the generator to your home switches not only the hot conductors, but also the neutral conductor. The generator then becomes a separately derived system because it isolates the hots and the neutral from your electrical service. We still only have one bond, but now that bonding jumper moves from your service out to the generator. Most home backup systems are not designed this way. So the second reason you'd want a bonded neutral generator is when you're using the generator as a standalone power source, like on a job site or when you're out camping, when it's not connected to your home. That bond gives the generator a low impedance current path, so a short circuit will trip a breaker and clear a fault. If the generator has GFCI protection, that'll still function without the bond. But if there was an issue before the GFCI protection at the generator, that could be dangerous. So for standalone use, it's best that we have a bonded neutral for safety. How do we bond a floating neutral generator? If we have a floating neutral generator for home backup, but we want to use it occasionally as a standalone system to run power tools or to take camping, now what? Well, there's actually a simple and practical solution for that as well. Let's make a bonding plug. A bonding plug is used to make a floating neutral generator bonded when it's used as a standalone system not connected to your home. We'll simply make a connection between the green ground terminal and the silver neutral terminal on this plug. If you do this, be sure not to make a connection between the green ground terminal and the bronze hot terminal, because that would be a short circuit. I'll link some bonding plugs in the video description or at this QR code if you don't want to make your own. They're not very expensive. We can plug this bonding plug into a receptacle on the generator to change it from floating to bonded, just like that. If your generator has GFCI protection, be sure it's not tripped or the plug won't work, because GFCIs open the hot and the neutral connections. And remember, always remove the bonding plug before connecting the generator to your home. How to float a bonded neutral generator. If we have a bonded neutral generator and we want to use it to back up our home, we're going to need to convert it to a floating neutral. We'll do this by removing the neutral to ground bond. It's literally just a jumper that connects the neutral to the ground terminal or the neutral to the generator frame. This generator isn't bonded, but if it was, you'd see a jumper from this terminal here with the white wire up to the frame with the ground wire. So if you wanted to unbond it, you'd remove the jumper from this terminal to the frame. This is usually pretty easy to find and do, but if you're not comfortable doing this type of electrical work, it's best to hire a qualified electrician to help you out. Okay, now we know when a bond is required, when it's not, and how to make the change if needed. But how do we find out if our generator has a bonded or floating neutral in the first place? There are 4 methods we can use without actually trying to search for the bond. I'll list them in the order of reliability, with the 4th one being the most reliable. Method number 1, owner's manual. You can check your owner's manual, but sometimes that information can be hard to find and it's not always reliable. There's nothing in this manual about a neutral to ground bond, so it's best not to rely on the manual alone. Method number 2, continuity test. You can take a continuity reading between the neutral and the ground pin on a receptacle. Just be sure if you do this that the generator is not running. We'll just check between neutral and ground. And you can see I have no continuity at all here because this generator has a floating neutral. Let's connect our bonding plug and test it again. Now we have continuity between the neutral and ground, so we have a bonded neutral generator. But this may not work with some inverter generators. You may notice that I'm using an Ideal multimeter for testing in this video. This is my new favorite multimeter, and I want to thank Ideal for sponsoring this video. I had a package show up the other day that I wasn't expecting. When I opened it up, it was filled with goodies from Ideal. There were some really cool items in the box. A 100-foot zoom fish tape, and it's unique. It's made out of stainless steel, but with a nylon jacket for protection. Also, a Deadeye magnetic chip collector. This is really cool. It snaps onto any metal surface and collects the chips when you're drilling holes. An 8-piece drill and tap set with smooth start. This is a really nice set. No more searching for the right size drill bit to fit your tap. And a 9-in-1 ratchet knot screwdriver. It's a multi-piece set with a cutout in the handle designed for tightening wire nuts. A real hand saver. I'll link these in my other tool recommendations, including this multimeter, down in the video description. Or you can scan the QR code on the screen if you want to check them out. These are some really great gift ideas. Thanks again to Ideal. I love the new tools. Okay, we talked about number 1, using the owner's manual. Number 2, taking a continuity check. Now on to number 3, using a 3-light outlet tester to test one of the receptacles on the generator. Well, I was just wheeling the generator outside and it started to snow. So we'll perform this test on a battery power station, which will essentially be exactly the same as what you would do on a gas generator. Every power station that I've seen has a floating neutral. So when we plug this outlet tester in, I should see just a left-hand side light here. That means it's an open ground. And that's what we show. So we know this power station has a floating neutral. If we bond it with our bonding plug, now we know it has a bonded neutral. Now I should see correct wiring, which would be the outside 2 lights. Let's try that out. And we have the outside 2 lights. So you can use an outlet tester to determine whether or not you have a floating or a bonded neutral on your generator or on a power station. Some inverter generators can fool these outlet testers. That's why I stick with the last method. Method number 4, voltage test. You can use a multimeter set to AC volts to test any receptacle on the generator or on a power station. This is my favorite and the most reliable method. Let me show you how that's done. The first thing we do is start our generator or turn on the power station and then energize the AC outputs. Next, we're going to place one probe in the neutral slot and the other one in the ground slot. We're reading about 65 volts, so we know this power station has a floating neutral. That reading can be anywhere from 1 to 2 volts all the way up to about 70 volts. I went over that in my last video. I'll link that at the end of this one. We're seeing induced phantom voltage because the neutral is not bonded to ground. So again, if we're seeing voltage from neutral to ground, that means we have a floating neutral. Let's connect the bonding plug and take readings again. Okay, now we're reading 0 volts. So we know the neutral and ground are bonded. Okay, on to our last question. When is a ground rod required for generators? Grounding is a topic where you can ask 5 electricians the same question and get 5 different answers. It can be confusing because the rules change depending on how a generator is connected. Article 250 in the National Electrical Code covers grounding requirements, and it's extensive, but I've broken it down to just generator use to try to keep it as simple as possible. For this discussion, we're going to use the term ground rod because it's the most common way to bond a generator frame to earth. Just keep in mind that the code recognizes several different types of grounding electrodes, not just ground rods. When a ground rod is required for your generator. If the generator becomes a separately derived system, that happens when the neutral is switched, like we talked about before. When that's the case, a ground rod is required. If the generator is feeding a structure that's not connected to a grounding system. If the generator is the only power source to an outbuilding like a garage or a shed, then a ground rod is required. When a ground rod is not required for your generator. A floating neutral portable generator feeding your home. This is what most of us use to back up our homes, and they do not require a ground rod. A cord and plug connected portable generator. When a generator is used as a standalone system for cord and plug connected loads, a ground rod is not required. A generator that's already connected to the building ground rod at the transfer switch. If you have a generator requiring a ground rod, but the transfer switch, which is mounted on the side of your home, is already bonded to the existing ground rod, then a second new ground rod is not required. Many people think a ground rod is ground fault and short circuit protection, but it's not. The earth is not an effective fault return path. Article 250.4A5 spells it out clearly. The earth is just too resistive. You cannot rely on it to trip a circuit breaker. Ground rods are for lightning protection, transient overvoltages, and induced surges. Ground rods are not for clearing short circuits, clearing ground faults, or making a generator safer during normal operation. That protection comes from your neutral to ground bond. Well, I hope this information helps clear things up for you. Hey, all my tool recommendations are linked down in the video description, or you can scan the QR code on the screen. And I'll link that phantom voltage video right here for you to watch next. Or if you're interested in generator maintenance and generator safety, click into this playlist right here. I'm John from Backyard, Maine. I really appreciate you guys being here, and I'll see you on the next one.